Helen of Wyndhorn, issue number 2. That's right, folks. We are once again entering the world of Helen of Wyndhorn, this really fantastical, elaborately put together book. I don't really know where the direction is going yet. There's a clear vision being told here, and I think that's really cool. I wonder, what the real end of this is going to be like, what the end game could look like. It definitely has, elements of what's real, what's fiction, what do we put into story to make things sound more, fantastical and exciting. That's a really cool angle to play up. And I'm just having a great time, and it just continues to be a really beautiful piece. Tom King and Bilquis Evely, they're really good at this type of story and this type of aesthetic. It works for both of them. King likes to write fantastical elements, and Evely just makes something it's unbelievable what she can do. I love to see it. So this issue kind of opens up similar to the last one. Instead of somebody looking at an old collection of the comic books, we are looking at Thomas Rogers' book about C.K. Cole. Is that his name? I believe that's his name. Because in the last issue, he was interviewing Lilith about working with the Cole family. So now he wrote a book about the life and tragic death of the Fantasy Master and that guy. So it's kind of interesting. And he's autographing a book for somebody, and there's a person who's like, oh yeah, you might not have known that Lilith passed away last year. She was kind of connected to my family. We knew her kind of well, but she died, and she certainly had her weird stories and all that. So this guy's just oh, I didn't know she passed. That's crazy. I went to her house to talk to her a couple times when I was writing the book. That's really weird. Just kind of putting Thomas in this headspace of oh, I didn't know Lilith had died. So she's the last person that could recount these stories. So that's the present timeline or the future timeline, depending on how you want to check out this book. In the past timeline, it is all through the perspective of Lilith, because she is narrating the events of what she is seeing. And we cut to dinner one random night. Well, not one random night, actually. It's the night that Barnabas actually reared his ugly head back into his big manor, and Helen's what is going on? I just saw this guy kill a big weird beast, and now we're having dinner nothing just happened. She's getting mad. She's tell me what's going on. What was that thing? Nobody is giving her any information, and it just ends in a big angry screaming match where Barnabas breaks the table and just walks away. And it's just Helen getting more and more angry. I know what I saw. That night when she goes to stay with Lilith, she's I know what I saw there. You're young, you're drunk, you don't know what you saw. It's I know what I saw, Lilith. Something is going on here. And I know you might know more, and you might not tell me and whatever, but there's clearly something happening that I don't know. As it's nighttime, they're getting ready to get into bed. You see that Joseph the butler appears with a carton of cigarettes for Helen because she wanted to smoke, and Lilith's why would he come here so late at night to get a peek of us sleeping? She's no, you don't get it, Lilith. He grandfather wants us to stay here. He wants to keep me inside, so I don't try to leave the house. So we cut back to the future or present, depending on how you want to look at it, and Thomas is rummaging through a bunch of old books. His husband walks in hey, yeah, I don't know, remember when you said I could throw out a couple of these old boxes? I did that. Maybe if the thing you're looking for is in one of those boxes, it's gone, but you can't blame me for that. He's no, I just wanted to kind of look up again what was going on with Lilith, because the story is more interesting than I think, there might be something else there to explore. Cut back to the past, and we just see everyone kind of went on their own ways. Helen started to drink a little less, but she was still drinking. And Lilith, tried to teach her a couple studies, but she was well-versed enough where she didn't really care to learn anything. One day we just kind of went to study in the lawn, and she was just clearly distracted, unwilling to learn or cooperate. She kept saying she saw something through the hedges, so she went out there and ran through them, and that's where she found her grandfather Barnabas feeding a weird creature. It's a flyune, is what they call it. It is the same creature that her father wrote about in their stories. And she's I'd never seen one before. I read about it, but I've never seen it. And Barnabas is yeah, they're just kind of hungry. They have to head back home eventually. And it's a brief connection. A brief, fleeting connection between these two people. And he's all right, you should get back to your studies, Helen. I don't want to talk to you. So she is just left alone again with more questions than answers to anything going on. And it sends her just into like a dizzy of just wanting to be alone and realizing that she recognizes the creature, but she doesn't have any of her father's books. And she tries telling this to Lilith one night. It's like, I remember when I was with Dad, we'd like go from town to town. I'd look in the shops and I'd see his name like on the sign or something, and those were his books. And I always wanted to read them, but he'd never let me read them. And one night, or sometimes every now and then, I would just like take the money I was supposed to do, like get food, and just buy a book and read it. And I didn't understand why he didn't want me to see that. But the creatures he wrote about and talked about, I just saw one in real life. And I know I might be a little drunk, but I'm always a little drunk. But I know what I saw. And Lilith, I know you saw it too. So I'm worried something's happening to me. But I also know it's not happening to me. It's like real. So you got to tell me something's going on. It's how much like concern can Lilith show from what she actually knows about the stuff going on. So I think it's like later that night she goes to talk to Barnabas, and Lilith kind of like presents like she is a smart kid. Helen is very well versed. She's knowledgeable, but she has her father's drinking problem. And that's going to lead her down a dark path. If that is all she knows, she's going to spiral into that same fleet, the same thing that happened to your son. And that makes Barnabas very mad. He's like, you cannot talk to me this way. Get out of my office. She's like, no, you have to understand, like, you brought her here for a reason. There is a reason you brought her here. And if you let her keep following into the despair that her father did, it's not going to end good. And he's like, just go, okay? I'm trying, just leave. Tom King loves his like old, embittered man who, just knows he failed at every aspect of life. It's one of his favorite tropes. We see it all the time. I'm not against it. I think it's great. So then we just kind of like cut back to the present where you hear Thomas like going over the tapes of when he was recording with Lilith, just like something was happening. Everything was different. I didn't really understand it. Why was there so many lies in this house? It wasn't doing good. And Thomas just keeps thinking, like, I wish I could, like, have done more. Like, I got her name randomly for, like, a record after she bailed Cole's daughter out when he died and all this stuff. But I just really wish I could have read more and done more talking to Lilith. Like, she's the only name I could uncover from all these people. I couldn't find Joseph. I couldn't find Helen. I couldn't find Barnabas. And I don't know what happened to them. They were just kind of, like, lost and gone for some reason. And as he keeps doing that, we cut back to see Helen is pretty damn drunk, and she's in the swords room, and she's like, look at me, I'm a barbarian. I'm like what my dad wrote. I'm a strong person. I'm a tough cookie. Look at me, and I'm going to slay the monsters in front of me. And Joseph and Lilith are like trying to stop her from swinging a sword around. It's not really working, but she just kind of collapses into Lilith's arms, just broken, just scared. Like, I am a bird in a cage, and I can't fly, and I don't feel safe here anymore. This is a cry for help, everyone. And that is when, like, the next night, sometime at supper, you see Barnabas shows up again to, like, actually engage with them. And he's like, I must take the Flyune back to, like, the mountains that she's from, in the Steel Mountains, so she can be with her mother. I will head out in the morning. Helen, you will be joining me on the journey. And everyone's like, what? He's like, yeah, Joseph will get you like the right attire and supplies to go with me. We'll leave here when the sun rises. And Lilith's like, are you sure? That seems. He's like, don't worry. I apologize for taking her, but it'll only be a few days, and she'll be back in your care. So the next morning, we see Barnabas is taking Helen out into the wild unknown. And from Lilith's perspective, she's like, I just assumed whatever was waiting for her there was something she wanted. And maybe like this would help her lose some of the pain she had in her heart. And that's where the book ends. And I do think when we get issue 3, we're not going to see like their journey. We'll see it like in like the secondhand tense where it's Lilith talking about it from like what she was told by either of them. And I think that's really cool. Keep up the mystery a little more. Like this is from the perspectives of Thomas and Lilith. So switching completely to the narrative of watching like Helen or Barnabas, I don't need to see that. I think that would kind of destroy the flow we're going for here. But this is still really fun. It's doing some really cool stuff. It's taking itself very seriously. I enjoy the vibes we're giving off on this one. The artwork is great. The classic story of Tom King talking about story itself. Come on, what's not to like? So, Helen of Wyndhorn, I am going to give a 9 out of 10. Now, thank you all for watching this review. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.